Sure. No problem.
So again, this is so basically when somebody's doing a probate case, by the end of the case, they've got to report everything that was found on the date of death of the person. If they have a house, they put that, they put the house on the appraisal, on the inventory, and they attach an appraisal for the house. Vehicles, they'll list vehicles, bank accounts. If there's personal property and they have appraised the property, that'll be listed on the inventory. So I have here the inventory that was filed by Cynthia Sauerland, who was the probate administrator for this case, who ended up taking over for Thomas Moore. So he had been the administrator for them for some time, and then she stepped in and continued their practices for them. As it turns out, she was also a real estate agent for them, whereas I don't think Thomas Moore was both an agent and the administrator. But the appraisal attached to this was something that was of concern to the heirs, and that I found concerning as well. Mr. Eskowitz, do you mind?
Is there a particular page?
And unfortunately, on the appraisal, they didn't mark the pages, but I guess, you can see, I don't know why the appraiser didn't actually do page numbers on his appraisal, but it would be certainly this page. I'd like to show that, and then the following page.
Okay, so I'll show these two pages.
Yes, sir.
Just want you to flip it over.
Okay. Thank you, sir. And so when you do an inventory, it's supposed to be the state of... Yes, sir.
Is that... Everybody see that? Okay.
It's supposed to be the state of the home on the date of the person's death. So when you see here, the appraisal that they got for their inventory shows a kitchen that has no cabinets, I hope you can see that. If not, certainly when we review the exhibit later, you'll see there are no cabinets, no sink, no counter. It's the bare walls in the kitchen. And the floor is missing. So, and you'll see in the bottom left-hand corner, same thing. The picture's not great, but you'll see the floor is missing there too. And sir, may we go to the next page? And in the hallway, missing flooring. In the bedroom, missing flooring. And so it costs money to do this process, right, to rip these things out. So it's interesting that, I guess, I'm not providing that document for you, so the fact that they didn't show that they paid for these services, to me, seems strange. But this is apparently what they were claiming as to how they found the home. And thank you, sir, very much. Thank you. And you'll find that, again, like I said before, James Clark was in a similar condition. So, and later, after this property, I'm sorry, I'm fidgeting. Later, when this property was resold, it was sold by and I'm sorry, like I said, I'm a little nervous, but if you look at that appraisal, you'll see that the appraiser said that he believed that it would take about $20,000 in repair costs to bring the home up to fair market value. It was about 3 months later that the buyer resold the home for $70,000. So as far as I'm concerned, that extra $50,000 should have gone to the family, not these other guys. And so right there, I thought, when somebody is ripping property out of a house to sell it to another individual with whom they've had these purchases or these transactions over and over again, that should be looked into seriously, because to me, I believe that's theft. Right? I mean, it makes no sense otherwise. So, an interesting thing. I wrote Jappy an email after the hearing that we had, and I really want you guys, want you folks to see the hearing, because I think it certainly put Compass Realty on notice. The judge was very concerned, and so you'll see that tomorrow, I hope. Jappy, I ended up, it was that same day, I believe, writing Detective Jappy an email saying that we went to court and there were these issues with this house as well, just like with James Clark. I don't know that I said that as like James Clark, but I certainly noticed those issues. May I share V2? This is an email from me to Detective Jappy. I can't recall the date, but it was in regard to the estate of Recep Abdul.
I'll approach you with this.
It's been admitted. V2 is admitted.
Thank you. And so this is actually to Derek Jappy and one of the other folks that was on his detail. This is hello, gentlemen. I'm not sure if you all had a chance to catch the hearing. I will get the video for you. Also, I'm not sure if you had a chance to view the response. It had an appraisal with the kitchen torn out. Today, Deborah Erbach testified that the photos of the house in the appraisal were not representative of how she had left the house. She had cleaned the house before she had returned home. She also said, and again, I'm sorry that, yes, I guess it's hearsay, but also the kitchen was intact when she left the home. It seems that the kitchen in this case was also potentially ripped out to reduce the value of the real property before the appraisal. So Detective Jappy was on notice of this concern as well. But and so despite all that, Detective Jappy, I'll tell you that at a certain point, I was, during the course of this case, you probably were aware that you may be aware that I was representing myself, and I was fighting for certain evidence. And I requested the case file for the case that Detective Jappy had built against me. When they gave me that case file, they also gave me the case file against Compass Realty as well. And so I was able to observe what was done in the investigation. So despite the fact that Detective Jappy had said that there would be these stakeouts, there were no stakeouts. There were no vehicle title searches to see what was going on with these vehicles. Despite the fact that I had raised concerns about what we found in the appraisals, or at least the one appraisal, Detective Jappy didn't seek appraisals from any of the other cases. Right, so it seemed odd to me that he would get up here and say that this was all about mail. Right? He said, "Oh, well, this is just
Objection in this case to testimony.
Sustained.
Yeah, I guess I can't recall what the to my knowledge, the issue that was raised according to Detective Jappy was that this is about certified mailing. I can't recall what the other issue was.
His opinion is proper.
Objection sustained.
So, but I guess you can go back to your notes and see what Detective Jappy said to you what this was about, because that's, in my opinion, that's clearly not what this was about.
Objection.
This is my opinion. Okay. So personally, I believe it's likely that well, based on what I'm going to discuss later about what Detective Jeppy did, I believe there's some type of compensation to him for all this.
Objection, the
So-
argument is the proper opinion.
I'm
I
a
would
witness.
just ask you to move on.
Sure, absolutely. And again, like I said before, I can have my opinions, right? And it's up to you to decide. I'm not the lawyer up
Brief
here.
approach on this.
Uh-huh. Ask you to limit your testimony to your personal knowledge and the facts, because your opinions are not really relevant. And so I would ask you your personal knowledge and things that you observed, and any inferences and arguments that can be made, your attorneys will be able to make those at the end.
And if Your Honor, if you don't mind, for clarification's sake, again, when Zach Schilling was giving his opinion
It's not
about circumstances.
appropriate, but if you want to have a hearing at the end of the day, that's fine too. But again, I would just ask that you limit it to the facts and your personal knowledge and any of your observations.
So if I have a particular opinion on some of the testimony, can I share that?
Your opinions are not relevant at this time. So again, I would ask you to limit your testimony to facts and observations that you made.
And then according to the judge's counsel, those are matters that can be argued closely.
So the attorney for Compass Realty began to stonewall me after the hearing, because what happened during the hearing is that I was granted this authority to engage in investigations against them.